Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Jake Parker.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry. And all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked for all the major publishers in the business. And together we've published somewhere around 75 children's books. And we've all taught illustration at university art programs.
That's right. Each week we come at you guys with different listener questions or amazing illustrator interviews, just like the one we're going to do today. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you learn something brand spanking new.
That's right. Brand spanking new. Today we got Rich Tunes. It's Rich Murray, but you can find him online. It's Rich Tunes at richtunes.com. He is a prolific, I would say, illustrator, animator, designer, graphic designer. He kind of wears a lot of hats, and you can see why if you go to, once you listen to our conversation, if you go to his portfolio, he does explainer videos. He does animation, sort of animation stuff, but also, and he'll do like caricature designs and character designs, things like that. But also we get into it about AI because like he says himself, he's not an advocate for the use of AI, though he's not afraid to mess around and kind of bring that tool into his workflow. So we do talk about some of that. I don't know, what were some of your takeaways from this, you guys? I don't want to spoil too much, but
yeah, I mean, it sort of reinforces some of the other stuff that we're saying, that the message and what you're trying to say and show is the most important thing, not necessarily the tools. And he really embraces that point. And so I just want to highlight that, because you guys are half of you are going to get angry with us when we say that some things are okay to use and other things aren't okay to use. And you're going to want to beat us up in the comments again, but it really is about the final thing. And, if you're coming up with things that are interesting to you and meaningful to you and other people, that's sort of where success lies, in my opinion. And that is true with Rich, both in his own personal life and also his professional life, it seems to be.
Mm-hmm. And I admire him in the way that he frames basically this issue of using AI or not, in that, are you creating something that's interesting, or are you creating something that's meaningless and boring? And he also, really, like, he's talking a lot about working for his intended target audience, and how do they receive the work that he's doing. It was an interesting interview. I'm glad we had him on.
Let's get into it, and be sure to stay afterwards to hear our comments after the show. You're going to listen to that. All right, let's get into the interview. This is Rich.
I'm Rich.
Rich Tunes TV.
Hey, Rich Tunes TV. Good to meet you.
Yeah.
Lee, what do you have going on with your hair?
Oh, I don't know. I had on my hat and then I took it off. Let me grab my hat.
I don't recognize you without your hat on.
I'm glad you said something. I didn't even notice.
All right. Now, as me having headphones, is that poor form? I just figured it just less sound leak and echoing or whatever going on. So
yeah. So I figured for today, what we'd do is I would read just open by reading
my provocative
comment that you sent us.
Right.
And let me find I got too many windows here. There we go.
We loved what you wrote.
Oh, okay. Well, some may hate it, but it's some.
There's no doubt that some are going to hate it. That's what makes it fun.
Well, and I think this will be probably a colorful episode.
Oh,
for sure.
Great. Wow.
So,
all right, good. I'll live up to that.
I don't mind asking a couple hard questions and letting us get into it. If you're okay with that.
Yeah. Well, I wrote it.
You asked for it, right?
I threw my hat in the ring and you picked it up. And so, oh, should I be in bare feet as well?
I think you're fine. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll just jump right into it. Then we'll let you go when we're done with the conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
Usually goes 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what we're doing. And then you'll leave, and then we'll do an intro outro where we'll introduce you. And
I figured you probably weren't going to do the intro in front of me. That's something you drop in later.
Yeah. If you're good with that, then
sure.
Then we're good to go.
Sure. Let's go.
Let's jump right into it.
Okay.
All right, Rich, thanks for joining us. I want to start with reading the comment that you sent in. So we get questions emailed to us. That's how we run the podcast. And I'd been familiar with Rich online. I've seen your work, here and there online. You're active online, not too active, not inactive. So it's enough to show up in my feed. And I read your comment. I was like, well, let's have him on. Let's have this perspective on the show. So this is what the subject line is. AI is not your enemy. And he says, this is more of a comment than a question. I've been seeing a post going around on Facebook from a displaced quote unquote displaced graphic designer about how they lost their job to AI. It goes on at some length and about how they were let go and cannot find further employment for what sounds like a fairly singular skill. I do feel for this person, but I'm a freelance animator and I'm booked for work through the next year for projects that will earn me 6 figures a year. But I also illustrate, I do graphic design, program, write scripts, edit video, and market myself in a way that works for me, mostly in LinkedIn. I've designed apps and mobile games. I've illustrated kids' books and comics, designed brands, and of course, animated numerous explainer videos, many of which I authored the scripts directly for high-end clients. I also adopt new technologies into my process, including about a dozen different AI technologies so far. I'm tired of hearing the whining about AI from artists. If you were banking on one skill for the rest of your life in these times, you set yourself up to lose. Ted Sarandos, did I pronounce that right? Sarandos?
As far as I know.
Yeah. Okay. Ted Sarandos, CEO of Netflix, said it best. AI won't take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI tools will take your job. I'm currently turning down projects because I can't fit them in between now and next spring. And I'm what most artists would consider an old guy. I'm close enough to 60 that I can punch it in the mouth. And by the way, you look great for being close enough to punch 60 in the mouth.
That's why I wanted to join this podcast, for the compliments.
How old are you, Rich?
Well, I'll be 58 very soon.
Oh, we're about the same age then. I just turned 58.
Yeah, there's a pregnant pause there as you all assessed.
Will was doing the math.
Maybe it's not that good.
I'm like, I've never thought about saying I could punch 60 in the mouth, but that's a good way of saying it. I like it.
Yeah. I could punch 50 in the mouth. That's where I'm at.
I'm going to be 30 soon, so.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Let's get back to it. So you're an old guy is what you're saying, and you're getting plenty of work. And he says, there's no end to work for me in sight. I know this sounds like a brag, but it's more of a call to artists to learn how to tell compelling stories for their clients in different ways, to communicate with their clients in clear and effective ways, and to do great work no matter what the medium. I don't need AI or even a lot of software to do this. I can always go back to pencil and paper, but everyone needs to be prepared for the marketplace to change. Be interested in these changes, be ahead of the curve instead of complaining what the world has left you behind. Instead of complaining that the world has left you behind. I'm having more fun and being more creative than ever. So I guess if there's a question for you guys in here somewhere, it's what are your thoughts? So that is quite a opening statement.
Yeah.
Did you want to
That's pretty harsh.
add anything to that?
Well, did I really say that? Did I want to add anything right away before you guys have any questions?
Yeah. Is there anything you wanted to like shed more light on or color a little bit more or just let us go from there?
Well, I can, first of all, I don't necessarily want to be, I'm not necessarily looking to be an AI evangelist by any means. And I'll maybe just back into it a little bit by just kind of giving you a little bit of perspective of how I got here from wherever. And as I was saying to Jake earlier, that, so I've been about 30 plus years in front of the screens, since just about Illustrator version 1, Photoshop version 1. I remember when they added the dotted line tool in like the the little magic or the little selector that was in version 2 of Photoshop. Anyway, so oh, and what you're looking at there, so this has actually been a kind of a busy day for me. First of all, it's my wife's and my 23rd wedding anniversary today.
Oh,
so
nice.
there was that to start.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Then secondly, there was this event just this morning. So Humble and Fred, they are a podcast, one of the biggest podcasts in Canada. So that's where I come from, by the way. I herald from Oakville, Ontario, Canada, just outside of Toronto. And so these guys had the #1 morning show in Toronto, which would have been the #1 morning show in Canada. Now they have a podcast. They gave me the tap a few weeks ago to design their beer can label. They're launching a beer for the summer with their names on it. And so I designed not only the artwork for the can, which was my very first beer can illustration or design, but also I did a 1-minute promo commercial for it that I'd say about 90-95% of the shots in this I created using AI technology, including, I know you can't hear it right now. People can go listen to it when they want. But even the song itself was created using AI technology. So that's not to say AI created what you're looking at right now, but I'll say I worked with AI tools to create what we're looking at here. So anyway, but my background goes back to I possibly similar to Jake, where I grew up, just my life was all about comics and comic strips. I've got a comic book cove in the basement that's filled with shelves of graphic novels, original comic book art, spinning comic book racks, and arcade games and that sort of thing. So anyway, and then from there, I actually failed getting into art school. They rejected me, as well they should have, because my portfolio was horrible. There were 3 instructors that passed around. Like if basically, you needed their approval to get in, and I think I was 3 for 3, not wanting me to go in, because I mean at the time I was very mature. It was just a bunch of cartoons and a very small portfolio case. One of them even said to me, and this was the most compassionate one, who said, if this art thing doesn't work out for you, is there something else you could do? Anyway, so from there,
that's confidence, right?
Yeah. Well, it's probably the best thing that could happen to me at the time. Not that it filled me with rage and revenge, but it was just. But my better fit was a little later at Sheridan College, where I went there for computer graphics. And as I said, they had Macs, and they had the first editions of Illustrator and Photoshop. And they also had a little thing called Macromedia Director. And you might not have heard of that, but basically it allows you to bring in your graphics and text and sounds and whatever else onto a timeline. And it allowed you to use a little bit of scripting, a little bit of programming to create like interactive experiences. And that's when it really clicked for me. It brought together everything that that interested me, everything to do with animation, with drawing, with doing graphics, designing, and allowing me to create like a custom user experience. So for a long time after that, I'll kind of run through this pretty quickly. For a long time after that, I did a lot of designing of interactive presentations. I mean, I did along the way also continue to do illustration, animation to some extent. That wasn't necessarily in great demand. But the one thing I learned right away to do was to, because back then, if you were sort of getting into this stuff, you kind of needed to be what they used to call a multimedia generalist. So what that would mean is, yes, the illustration, the animation, the design, also learning things like layout software, also learning things like, programming to create like a touchscreen kiosk, putting together magazines and, all sorts of stuff that, and I had to learn that pretty quickly. Like my first work placement was at a place that paid me very little, which was fine. I just considered I was still going to school while earning a couple of bucks. And from there on, so I created more sort of interactive presentations. I went on to design hundreds of apps, although back in the day they called them applications because they were on like CD-ROM. They weren't mobile, so they weren't hit. I was doing apps before apps were cool. Made a really great living at doing that. In the year 2005, the year my son was born, I decided it was a very quick decision, and it seemed like a weird thing to do when you're depending on an income and your baby was just born. But I decided, what, I'm not being completely true to everything it is that I want to do. And so I created the entity that is richtunes.com, and where my slogan was marketing with character. And so whether it was print or video or interactive experiences, designing clothing or anything, it was all about, doing that in such a way that was kind of true to what I wanted to do, which is a lot of cartooning and animated based stuff. And and as of I'd say about 5-6 years ago, I've been earning a pretty steady living doing animated explainer videos, mostly for the healthcare industry. Because if there are two industries, the two industries I probably worked for the most in my life are banking and pharmaceutical, because no matter how bad the economy is, they always have all the money because they're always doing well. Actually, the worse everything else is doing, they're doing better. So anyway, so they, and so I, again, as I was mentioning to Jake earlier, that right now I have a client directly in the US, actually, even though I'm up here in Canada. And it took a while to get that. I mean, not just earning their favor, but there was a whole onboarding process that where I had to fill out, I had to sign a 50-page master service agreement. It demanded I had $25 million worth of insurance. I don't know why. I couldn't get $25 million. They did settle for me getting $5 million insurance. I still don't know what it covers, but I had to get it. And I have to wait 90 days to be paid from the time of finishing a job and invoicing.
This is working for who?
Well, this is working for Abbott. So they do Glycerna and Ensure and Pedialyte and a lot of basically protein drinks in various formats for people of various ages and lifestyles and ailments and all that kind of thing. So so what I do now, it tends to be public facing, in terms of education, whether it's doctors showing it to their patients or people just come across it. And so that's where I'm at. And almost none of that does involve AI, but I have been experimenting with AI steadily for, let's say, the past 7-8 months, just for my own experimentation. But for, in the case of like this morning, for that beer launch, they loved it. Like they're trying to, put it in as many places as possible to kind of help promote the beer. So, so there you go. So there's a little backgrounder that kind of helps establish how I got here and where it kind of came from in a very, quick fashion. But anyway, and I've also, I've published kid books as well that a friend of mine authored, but I did the pictures for. We did 2 in the series, and then the publisher halted. They didn't even print the second one. We made about a total of 50 in-store signing appearances to promote it. I even actually, influenced by you, Jake, I did a comic book, just a 10-page story,
Nice.
just starring the two characters. And it was my first as an adult. I used to make them all the time as a kid, but probably my first time as an adult making an actual printed comic book. And so just as a giveaway, I mean, basically by giving those away, I was giving away any money I was possibly making from the retail sale of the book. But it was just, we were trying to get enough copies sold that it might help to ensure a continued life of the series, which we didn't. And so anyway, so yeah, all sorts of experience in all sorts of areas.
Yeah, you've been around the block once or twice.
Yeah,
for sure.
and so that is one of the points that I brought up in my emails to you, was that so I'm probably a different case than maybe a number of people that send questions to you guys. I find when I listen to your podcast, and I do all the time, and I read all your newsletters. Jake, I know you were talking about how you get like a 50% open rate, and I would say I'm a 100%er. So I don't know if you saw the movie Anchorman, where Paul Rudd's character is describing the very powerful cologne he wears, and he says 10% of the time it works 100% of the time. So anyway, so I'm one of those guys, anyway, so yeah, and so very influenced by you guys, but so I noticed in your podcast that there tend to be two different camps of people that ask questions. One camp seems to be doing what you guys have a lot of courses on, which is self-publishing their stories, and then the other half seem to be how do I get into this industry? And so, in a lot of cases, obviously artists are posting their stuff on platforms like Instagram, or maybe now it's Cara, or maybe next year it's something else. But so I've found, for me, I'm not very good. I really tried at Instagram to pump up my numbers. I would put out something every day. Especially when I was doing the books, like I did 400 illustrations, for the two books combined. I put those out. There's even another YouTube channel I watch about draw every day, and he had like a 30-minute exercise you're supposed to do on Instagram, where anyway, it's a whole bunch of steps to try and get yourself noticed and make comments at certain times, doing certain things. I did that for a while. That wasn't really working for me. But what did work for me, for what it is that I'm selling, at least currently, which is animated explainer videos, is posting on LinkedIn. And I'll do that at least 3 times a week. And I found that for me, that's probably got me the most attention, and it has directly got me work, and indirectly got me Abbott as a client. And the reason is that so I got the attention of someone up here in Canada at a university. So it was an academic client, and they couldn't afford what would have been my full rate to do it. So I had to make a decision, do I do this basically for half the price, and, but really do a great job of it. And I really obviously liked this person, and I really believed in the message of, health-wise, what they were trying to get across. So, so in doing so, she actually had some connections with Abbott. And so Abbott noticed the work I did for her, and so therefore now I'm a direct supplier to this company. And in addition to that, I mean, I've had other clients notice me, or at least Like when there have been a few times I posted my demo reel, and I've noticed producers from live event companies closer to where I am here share those posts saying, "Oh, you guys should take a look at what this guy's doing." So for me, for promoting myself, I found that LinkedIn has been the best platform for me. And I finally got comfortable with, oh, okay, I don't necessarily have to keep up this constant feeding of Instagram or maybe even some others. And it's been such a relief. I got to tell you guys, it's been such a relief. It's only been really in the last like 2-3 months where I've given myself that permission to go, you know what, don't worry about Instagram. Don't worry about it. What's working for you?
Your future clients aren't going to be surfing Instagram and be like, oh, this is the guy I'm looking for.
Right. And I do, of course, I do appreciate recognition from other artists on other platforms and people I know on Facebook and things like that. And I mean, a part of me too, that, I've done the kids book publishing. I've tested out some other ventures like online comic strips. Mm-hmm. And you were looking at earlier when you look at my site, there was I experimented towards the end of last year with TikTok, putting up little 20-second TikTok videos called Weirdly True, where they're just like weird but true facts, just in a fun animated way. And then I'm an artist, so my attention was very short. And all of a sudden, then I started noticing, for me, people were starting to do some interesting things with some AI technologies. And so I thought, well, I'm going to actually, if I have spare time between work projects, I'm going to kind of play with that stuff a little bit and just see what I can do. So there you go.
So it sounds to me like, and I appreciate what you say about essentially there's work out there for illustrators, mm-hmm. if you're willing to do the work that's available, essentially, right?
Yes.
And it looks to me like there's two camps of people. There's the people who are like diehard following their passion. Like my passion is, I'll come up with something off the cuff here, luchador comics. Like mm-hmm. I just want to draw comics about luchadors, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's the follow opportunity camp. That's like, yeah, I love drawing luchador comics, but right now the only jobs available are pharmaceutical explainer videos. Mm-hmm. So if I want to work and I want to draw, I'm going to go do pharmaceutical explainer videos, and whatever's left over, I'll do my luchador comics.
Right.
And essentially, is that what you're saying is if you want to survive in this particular economy and moving forward, you've got to be one of those people who's more willing to follow opportunity than who's just going to doggedly pursue a passion regardless of how successful that could be?
Actually, I would say neither. I would say actually what I do is I make opportunity for myself. So that decision, as I was saying, about sort of betting on myself in terms of if I do this explainer video for this person, mm-hmm. I had good instincts about them, about what the industry they represented, I had this good feeling that it was going to lead to something bigger. But I'll also talk about so the other thing we were previously talking about the beer can label. So the reason why I got the tap from those guys, from the podcasters, Humble and Fred, was that probably about 10 years ago, I made what I called fanimations for mm-hmm. them, which is I got, so what I would do, I was a big fan of the podcast. They would talk for 20 minutes about something, really had me laughing. I would take that 20 minutes, I'd edit it down to like 2 great minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I'd take that 2 great minutes and I'd create a 2-minute animation with their caricatures, with them, moving around, talking, and kind of represent the stories that they're describing, I would represent those in an animated way. The first one I did, I just thought, well, I'll submit it to their Facebook. Like they had a thing open where you couldn't post directly on their page, but you can kind of submit it and they'll see if they want to post it. I didn't have any expectations. I had hopes, but I had no expectations. Once I did that, I came back later in the afternoon. It was a Sunday when I sent it. Later in the afternoon, after coming back from something with my family, they had sent me an email inviting me to be on the show when actually, it was a radio show on Sirius XM, to be a guest the next morning on the show and talk about it. So obviously that's great positive affirmation for me. So I did another one. I did up to, it was around like about 10 of them for them over the course of like a couple of years, again, as other projects allowed. And that's, you know, so now those are for free. I didn't you know, get any money for those. There's not a whole lot of money in radio, but, you know, and even this beer can label and this video that I did for them, no pay. They offered, you know, they were going to maybe offer a couple $100 or something like that. And that was just for the label. The video was a surprise for them. But what I'm hoping, again, betting on myself, well, one thing, I get to put my website on that beer can label. Right. The other thing is that what I'm trying to show everyone, let's put the AI thing aside for a second. What I'm trying to show everyone who might either listen to their show, watching when it's live streamed, or when they buy that beer and see these videos, that they go, oh, wait a minute, this guy, if I want to do marketing in this kind of way, this is the guy I want to talk to. And so these are the, you know, these are the opportunities I've got a whole bunch of examples through my life of this kind of thing. I'm trying to, I don't mean to make it sound like it's a brag. I'm just saying, right, you know, that it's about making your own opportunities and still doing what you love to get those opportunities.
I love that approach. So going back to the luchador comic thing, it'd be like, yes, I love to draw comics. Maybe I love luchadors. There's really nobody's like picking up my luchador comics, but I see an opportunity over here where, you know, if it's in your example, it's this successful radio show. Let's draw these two guys as luchadors doing their podcasts in the ring, and we'll make a comic of it, put them on the cover. And I can't see a situation where, you know, if it's two fun-loving, you know, radio show guys, that they wouldn't at least talk about that. Like, hey, check out this comic this artist made for us. This is really cool. Maybe we'll print a few copies. If you guys want them, go to our online shop. And now you're connected into their audience as the guy who drew that comic.
Exactly. So I have so many more contacts now through their show. Like so many people, you know, initially when I started doing the cartoons, they were getting hundreds of views right away from people saying, this is amazing, this is great. And so what I would do is make sure I friended not every single one, but a bunch of them. And, you know, so now things that are occurring in my feed will hopefully sometimes also occur in their feed, or things I post will hopefully occur in their feed. And, you know, so I've gotten a couple of little jobs from it. As you know, it's a matter, like, look, it's like you guys, it's like you have a lot of irons and a lot of fires, right? With all the different things that you do, that's what it is. And, you know, and sort of not necessarily sticking to one definition of yourself, I am only this. And that was part of my point in that comment that I made, that this person was very frustrated. And, you know, again, I do feel for them, but they seem to be singularly skilled, as they described anyway, being a graphic designer. So if that's the case, and in this post, they indicated, oh, and I applied here and I applied here, same story. So if that's the case, then maybe you got to change your game a bit, whether it's the skill set or whether it's the marketplace, you kind of have to read the room and go, okay, like this exists. So, we can talk about it a little bit. AI, it exists. Okay, so what does that mean for my marketplace? Where I'm focusing my efforts. Do I change where I'm focusing my efforts? Do I change where I'm focusing my skills? Or do I get out of this entirely, like that guy advised me back at the art school?
Well, I think you're doing something that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, that everybody that we know that's actually working is hustling in some way. Yes. And it's never exactly what you think it's going to be. It's always this kind of meandering route. and you got to almost shoehorn the fun that you have into these opportunities. And that's what I love about some of the stuff that you've done, that it's not like as a 13-year-old kid drawing comics, you wouldn't dream of doing kind of infographics in a way, right, videos and stuff, but you really made it your own. And that's what we always talk about, is there's no bad jobs. You can just, you can almost change anything. Because what all these companies are doing, and what you've really harnessed, is they sort of have some dry information. They have to hire somebody like us to make it interesting, right? I mean, if it's information sort of based. Right. So that's amazing that and I think it's true that you have to hustle in weird different ways. And you found kind of almost, it seems like an untapped market that you could I don't know if you can get as much work as you want, but it sounds that, it's kind of like when I was doing concept art for architects, there was no one else that I was competing with there, because it's not I want to be a character designer for Pixar. Everybody wants to be a character designer for Pixar, right, but there's all these other side opportunities that if you find that little niche, it's sort of wide open. I do have a question about the beer commercial.
Go ahead.
You already have all this big history of making these videos, like with motion graphics and everything. Did they come to you saying, hey, we want a realistic sort of ad commercial video, and then you said, oh, I'm going to use AI to solve the problem because they already pitched it to me in this certain way? I guess I'm wondering is, why didn't you illustrate the whole thing instead of using the AI route?
Well, first of all, when they approached me, their initial ask was just for me to draw a caricature portrait of the two of them. And they told me what for. And I asked them, again, here's where you make your own opportunity. And I asked them, well, do you have a designer for the label? And they said, maybe, we don't know, probably not. So I said, so I took the bull by the horns. And that's another big point for me in my life, is that I tend to be that way. I tend to be a project manager, or, so I took the bull by the horns. I said, okay, don't worry about it, guys. And they said, all right, well, we don't have much to pay. I go, don't worry about that either. I said, I don't advise that for artists, by the way. But I knew this was something I was kind of sticking in between the cracks of the pain work I was doing. But anyway, so I said, okay, I'll design this label for you. And I did pretty much first draft. They were like, yep, I love it. And so no, the commercial, along with a song, a customized song for them, was a complete surprise to them. I said, guys, here's your label. And I said, in a few days, I got a surprise for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. And then, so they're already on the pins and needles. When I sent it to them, when I felt, okay, this is in a good, I think it's funny. I think it reflects the irreverency of the podcast. I sent it, and they, again, they loved it right from the get-go. So I actually made, there is one lyric that was a little bit not safe for work. So there's the safe version. That's the one that's on my website, the clean version, and I even changed the scene using AI. So my choice for that, again, was just to show that I'm not necessarily one thing. I'm primarily, something. Even the styles that I use for my 2D animated videos, I sort of float between kind of a Saturday morning cartoon kind of style, and then the other style, which is what I use mostly for anything certainly if it's an adult audience, and you know, a lot of the stuff for Abbott is what they call a flat vector style. You've heard of that, right?
It's like the Kurzgesagt type of.
They're my heroes. They're like and there's another point I would say. Whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm sort of specializing in that time, you can't find a bigger fan than me of it. Like, I am all over all the who I perceive are the best animated explainer video companies. When I was doing interface design, I would look at the most cutting edge interface design. I go, okay, I got to be as good as that. And I'd be a big fan of it. When I did a mobile game, I go, okay, I love mobile games. Let's look at all these mobile games. What's you know, what do the graphics look like? What's the playability like? How does this work? You know, so I would become, you know, like the biggest, or I might already be, you know, like the biggest fan of some of this stuff. And so, you know, that's, you know, I bring that to it. I'm never doing anything in any sort of style or any sort of work these days because I feel it's the work I have to take. I'm doing it because I'm a big fan of this stuff, and I'm going to make whatever project this is look as good as what I think any of the best of that stuff is.
Right. I think therein lies sort of one of my issues with AI art. So you made this commercial video, right? And you banged that out in a couple of days, probably, right?
4 days. It was 4 days.
4 days. Okay. Yeah. And if you were to do your animated style, you know, how long would that take?
Anywhere from 80 to at least 100 hours.
Right.
Probably.
Right. Yeah. So AI, what we've seen with this AI tool sort of just dropping right in the middle of society is that there's been this explosion of like interesting ideas that people who have the computers and the tools, now they're able to manifest these ideas in like a very clear and consumable way that it would not have come about otherwise because they didn't have the time or they didn't have the skill to make it, right? Which leads me to the question that if someone didn't have the time or the skill needed to execute an idea, is that idea even worth paying attention to? Right. Like if not for AI, it would have taken you 40 hours to do that. What would you really want to spend 40 to 100 hours really spending your time on? A commercial for a beer podcast thing? Probably not. You'd probably want to do something a little bit more that you're passionate about. So the issue I think I have is now there's a piece of content in the world that isn't particularly great and awesome, and it isn't particularly like I would say expertly crafted because there's AI wonkiness to it. So I'm like, what's the point? Why put that into the world at all if that's what comes of it?
Oh, ow.
Let me add to that.
Yes.
The logo you designed, the caricatures that you did, the can that you designed, beautiful, wonderful. Seeing an animated thing done in that style, had you done 100 hours into it, wow, that'd be cool. I understand though the economics wouldn't allow that. But now we're stuck with something that took 4 days that also looked like it took 4 days. You know, to me, the artist trained eye person, the person with the artist trained eyes. I know there's a subset of the population who can see AI stuff and not even realize it's AI and think that's totally fine. But I kind of want society to level up altogether, right?
Can I jump in and say,
yeah,
I don't care what you want. I'm going to be the voice that says I don't care, because I want to make money. Like I'd rather make more money and do it quicker. I mean, like I'm using Photoshop right now. When Photoshop first came out, that was the criticism of digital artists. Oh, it's digital. Oh, they didn't really do it.
No. Well, that was the criticism. But
and now, well, let me just finish. So
okay.
So now I'm like, 60 to 70% faster. So I'm able to do work because of digital tools that didn't exist before. And I don't want our audience to think, you know, the comments are always going to be, oh, these guys just love AI. They're who are they getting paid by? They're, you know, like we're shilling for AI companies or something. But like in the end, it's moving forward, and it's not going to, you don't like some of the stuff that you're seeing right now, but it's going to get better and better and better.
I know, but I don't care that you just want to make money. I also have a lot of care for our culture, and that it's preserved, and that it's beautiful, and that there's people putting time and effort making great things and not just garbage for a buck, right? Like that's where I take issue. Like I don't, you know, if a computer plays chess, I'm not impressed. If a human plays chess, I'm interested. You know, if a human says to a computer, figure out how to win this match using just the rooks, you know, that might be interesting to watch for a minute to see how the computer would solve that problem. But what's way more interesting to me is watching a human who spent time practicing their rook game and go in and say, I'm going to beat this match using only rooks.
So is your point, Jake, that he should have made the video, he should have illustrated the video, or he shouldn't have used AI, or what's the point there?
I'm saying 4 days to make that video, maybe that could have been spent working on something that you actually could have like crafted with your own hand.
But you're also inserting your own value system. You're inserting your own value system.
Well, that's my question. Is that I mean, I feel like it was used correctly in that. I mean, the ideal goal of AI, if I'm not mistaken, is speed me up on the things I don't want to be doing, so I can spend more time on the things.
Yeah. What if someone has an amazing story to tell, and they use AI to help with visuals or to help polish it in some ways?
If it's an amazing story, then it's worth the time and effort to make it for real instead of just.
It is for real. What if but what if it impacts someone who sees that story and it's enhanced by AI and it touches them profoundly? You can't say it's not art.
Well, I'll say this: if it is something that is that amazing and that good, then the AI could be proof of concept. And then let's go make it for real. Let's hire actors. Let's get a real cinematographer out there. Let's storyboard this thing.
Well, you're only assuming that it gets better because of that step. But
yeah, I think it does, because I want to see something people made and not an algorithm.
I respect your value system for you, and for anyone who represents that. I'm speaking more for not myself, but for the person who sees something on social media that they love and they fall in love with, and they would hear you saying, well, it's not real, let's go do it real, and they're like, it is. I loved it. I loved it.
I look at what Rich made there with that video, and it's a great proof of concept, but I don't think it's a great final product. Right? I think the logo's a great logo. That's a good final product. That's a good final character design. Your explainer videos, those look like they have time and effort put into them. There's animation and thought and all that stuff put into them. Those are great final products. But any sort of AI stuff I see, I kind of see through the AI and it just looks like proof of concept, like I'm putting together storyboards, really flashy, really gussied up storyboards, but it's not a final product.
Right.
That's sort of my issue.
Okay. Well, all right. So a few things there. So your opinion on the video, is subjective. As Will was pointing out. So far the reviews are rolling in. People are loving it for what it is, and what it is a service to the fans who it's getting them excited about getting this beer. Certainly I concede that there's a certain level of, let's say, jankiness that is currently, or not actually not currently, probably based on the 3 weeks ago when I made that, where AI is at. I mean, since then, there's been, Luma and Runway, and they're bringing out better and better, video, AI video technology. But, and again, I think what I still will think will set me apart, whether I'm using AI tools or whether I'm using Illustrator or Photoshop tools, which, by the way, like Will has pointed out, there are a lot of people way back before desktop computers came around, that they would point to all the art that we're doing now or we did then and say, this stuff looks janky compared to the stuff I've been doing by hand. You guys are cheating. So, but whatever the tools are, the most important thing, and this is a principle you guys are constantly saying, is first, be a great storyteller. And whether I've been developing interfaces, whether I've been making explainer videos, whether I've been doing my own stories or comics, whether I've been making games, it's and oftentimes I mention this, I know in my comment, that I often even write the scripts for a lot of the explainer videos that I do. So, I've been a good storyteller for some time, and for that particular commercial, and I, it's, it tells the story, and especially if you could hear it with the audio, for that, for this service, it's telling the story. Like, these guys, they loved it. The microbrewery that they went into partnership with loves it so far. And yeah, is it, let's say, is it broadcast ready? Is it broadcast worthy to say put on, the major networks? Maybe not. For the online, for the sort of home style podcasts that they do, I would say, in obviously my subjective opinion, it exactly matches the messaging and even, the sense of visual of who they are. I
agree. You're kind of leaning into the sort of hyper real cheesiness of it that AI has, which has to be acknowledged.
I think a dog with a beer mug, for those who weren't watching it, or just listening to this, the Pope raising beer mugs, or the dog lifting one, or one of the hosts swinging on a tire over his over the lake.
I don't think it actually would have been enhanced if you illustrated the whole thing, because you're going for that level of sort of you're acknowledging the cheesiness of it.
Right. Yeah. Even the fact that I'm portraying what you typically see in beer commercials, all these golden beer pours into mugs in slow-mo, everyone raising their glasses, everyone of every sort of walk of life raising glasses. I mean, there was even a guy at one point, it was an obviously inebriated man in the street with a mug in each hand falling over with them. The whole thing is speaking to the complete irreverency of this podcast and the kind of fans that they have, who are right exactly in line with those kind of images, with the and I mean, not to talk down about the audience, it's just they're a fun-loving audience. It's embracing that, and as Lee's saying, it's embracing the cheesy. And also, I'll just add that it was an excuse for me to continue experimenting. So in whatever technologies were available the 3 weeks ago, and every week brings 3 more things, believe me, it based on what was available at that time 3 weeks ago, it keeps me in touch with the tools that are supposedly putting disgruntled artists out of work. So I'm determined I won't be out of work. And that's not to say therefore you need to embrace AI. I would never say that. I think both can exist.
I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, Richard, because the thing is, there is a loud vocal, I don't know if it's even a majority, but there's a loud vocal group of artists that absolutely are shutting their ears. They probably have stopped listening to our podcast because we've been talking about it.
Hopefully not for good.
So if we look in the comments, we'll see, and they'll hate on this podcast too.
Yeah,
but
you
the thing
can't see
is,
anything positive.
There's a large group that are trying to drown out any voice like yours. And the thing is, all they're doing is making people that are doing what you're doing just not talk about it and just keep doing it anyway. And they're going to get replaced, or a lot of the work is going to go to people who are open-minded to using new technologies. Well, and they're the ones that are going to get a lot of work. And the thing is, let me just say one other thing. Back in the day, I went to what became the first Icon conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And because I was, for one reason or another, I was a brand new illustrator and I was vocal talking about the problems with stock illustration, I got invited to speak. And I went out to dinner with Brad Holland, Chris Payne, David Lesh, and Kerry Henry, and a bunch of others. And Kerry leaned over to me in dinner and he's like, "Hey, as a new illustrator, I know you're doing really well right now. I was making six figures like my third year as an illustrator." And he said, "I really hope you're saving a lot of this money because it's not going to last." I was like, "What? How could it not last? How in the world isn't this going to go on forever? Like, what would change it?" And like that, the editorial that I was doing, I was doing 20 jobs a month, just like a light switch shut off. Mm-hmm. And so I think what happens is a lot of these voices right now that are hating on AI have never been through these cycles, and they hate what they're seeing because it's a cycle change. It's changing what's coming. And we're not comfortable. We're not built for change. But the sooner you embrace the fact that nothing stays the same, the quicker you can kind of go through the grief process and move on to going, okay, tell me how to play this game, and I'll figure out, I'll be open-minded and figure out how to play it.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, like I've seen this with my own dad. He used to be a typesetter when that was a thing. When at a place that so basically he would design pages for newspapers, magazines, ads, things like that. The old-fashioned way, where you had to cut out pieces of film and paste them up and photograph them and do halftones and all that kind of thing. Anyway, around about the time I was going to school to learn about doing computer graphics, computers came into his workplace. And you know, they did send him. So at that point, he was actually younger than I am now. And at that point, they did send him on courses to try and learn it, but he just couldn't. He just couldn't get it. Like you guys ever read Robert Heinlein's "Stranger in a Strange Land"? Mm-hmm. They have an expression in it for when you're trying to understand a concept that's alien to you called grok. Like my dad did not grok computers. Like it just couldn't, no matter what the course is. And so they retired him early. Mm. And I could see in him that sort of deflation, because when you go through something like that, it's very existential because you're removing a huge chunk of the definition of who you are. Your work is such a huge definition of who you are. And his work definition of who he was became worthless, became meaningless. And so anyway, it speaks to what Will's talking about the change. And again, I reiterate that I would never ever say to anyone that, you know, you have to get to know these AI tools. And I wouldn't want that to be the takeaway of anything I'm saying today. What I would say is both can exist, and there's always resistance against something that is new. Like Will's talked about, the horse and buggy industry railed against, the manufacturing of cars, and movie houses railed against, television's out. Well, I guess we're wiped out. But once things settle down, you realize it's a world in which both can exist. There are all sorts of tools. We have all sorts of digital tools at our disposal. Whether you call them AI, which, by the way, I feel it's a misnomer. I think AI is often used either
Machine
to
learning,
scare or to make something sound sexy. It's just machine learning. That's all it is. It's machine trying to fill in the blanks, as best it can with whatever reference cues you give it. So you could be scared of it, or you can just understand that it's just a machine doing what it does. And anyway, but both can exist if you just want to be, I've fairly recently, purchased original comic book art from someone that, did like a Sunday art drop. And so, because I can look at that, I can hold it in my hands. Yes, it has incredible value, and that will not go away, but it has incredible value. One, because he's a great artist. Two, because he's a great storyteller. And again, the emphasis is on those things. And the sooner we kind of remove any prejudice we have towards any tools, I think the better.
One argument I will make, because otherwise we'll see it in the comments, is that the theft of the imagery. And I don't know where to go with that. It's such a big can of worms, but I do want to just acknowledge that a lot of people's problem isn't necessarily that AI is doing what it's doing. It's how it's sourcing what it's doing. So that needs to be acknowledged. One thing I was just thinking about, do you guys remember, everybody always has a problem with change, except for one time in history where, do you remember when HTML, we were having to hire HTML coders to do our websites. And my wife took a class on HTML. She's like, you're going to need to learn to do this so you can upgrade your site. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I was like, it's so complicated. Something will take its place. And then all of a sudden, sites like Squarespace and all that stuff, nobody ever said, all these web designers are going to be out of business, because now we have Squarespace that has 50 templates that you can sort of pick and choose from.
Well, you don't know. That conversation probably was happening in those circles when Squarespace and Wix and all the different options came out.
I never heard it, but it was just funny because everybody's like, "Oh, we hate HTML. Everyone hates HTML and coding and all that stuff." So
I think the people who knew how to code HTML went on to code other things, or if they leaned more towards design, they just said, I'll design your Squarespace site for you. Because there's some people who can't even manage Squarespace. Like, I don't know how this works. That's true. That's true. I hadn't heard it while we were talking. I hadn't heard of Luma, so I just entered in Yoda singing a country song. It's really funny if you lean into how stupid it looks. The video, you typed in that prompt and it made a video of it.
Yeah, that's what it did. So for those of you guys who are listening, I typed in Yoda singing a country song. I don't know why. I didn't know if it came with audio or not. But it's just a video clip. I don't think there's audio, but it's a guy coming in a bar, and then Yoda just appears out of the guy. Somehow he's playing a guitar. The guitar goes away. Yoda just kind of forms out of the guy walking in the bar. And then the guy has a guitar and Yoda walks off the other way. If you lean into how stupid that is, it's hilarious.
But that is, it is getting way better. Like if you've, and again, I'm not endorsing any of these platforms. I'm saying I will play with them. But
sure, it's going to get better.
But like Sora, I don't know if some of those demos even made the news about, like to express to you how much it's changing things. So have you all heard of Tyler Perry? He's a filmmaker, big film producer, Medea's, all the Medea movies. But beyond that, he's like, maybe quietly, maybe for some not so quietly, but he pretty quietly has a pretty huge Hollywood empire, production studio. He's a mogul. And he was just about to invest $80 million into further, expansion of his studios. The OpenAI people came in, showed him some of the demo videos of what Sora was putting out, just based on typing prompts, and then out of those prompts creating 1 minute long segments. And if you want to see what those look like, you should go to Sora and just see what some of those samples look like. Now, that's not publicly accessible yet, but Tyler Perry took one look at that and he said, cancel the plans. I'm not spending the $80 million on the studio. I am waiting for this to come, because when this comes, I don't need as much studio. Right. Let's put it that way. Or even if it's just, before I put $80 million into, all the, let's say, the old-fashioned physical stuff, let's just see where this settles. Because make no mistake, and I know we're kind of getting off of illustration, we're getting into movies, but it's all about media and what we create and what we consume. And right now, like it's standard, for instance, if you go in to pitch a movie, that you have an AI movie trailer basically in with the pitch, or else it's not even worth listening to. Or, I mean, you can put all your money into a fully realized trailer too.
Can I ask you, Rich, like, you've got this 6-figure contract with a medical company, right, for the next year?
Well, yeah, I have jobs in contract with them and a number of other clients that,
which is awesome.
Equal.
And that absolutely comes from your like opportunistic, like, hustle. Let's find a spot and let's do it. What if next week, they call you and say, hey, we need to cancel our plans. We just discovered explainervideo.com, where we can just type in the prompts.
Yeah, and those exist.
Right. And so why what would your plan be then? Or why are they going with you even though those things exist?
They're going with me, and I'll guarantee that, because again, I know this sounds like bragging, but I just
no,
I know from my experience, I'm a good storyteller. It's why they are willing to. They didn't, like, I did 2 or 3 videos for them, and now they go, okay, we want 6 of these a year, and talk to us. They've already said to me, talk to us in August. We want 6 more for next year. And in addition to that, before actually I did this podcast, I'm not lying, I took a video meeting with someone from a different department of the same company, Abbott, and they were interested in me doing something for their department. And basically I said, I don't have the time. And they're offering just as good money as I'd be making on all the other videos. I just can't do it. I don't have the time. So, I'm under no illusion. I mean, I went through the recession too. I'm under no illusion that the gravy train could stop at any moment. What helps is that I am close enough to 60 to punch it in the mouth that, if the phone isn't ringing, okay, then I'm jumping on the retirement train. But I don't see that coming anytime soon, because again, the qualifier for me is I don't care what style you want from me, what tools you think I should use or I think I should use on something. I will tell the best story of the story you're presenting to me. I will tell it in the best way possible, doing what I do, because I have ideas beyond just, I'm not just executing what people want. I bring to them ideas and they go, those are great ideas. Let's do them.
So really they're not hiring you because of the visual of the explainer videos. They're hiring you because of the ideas that you're coming up and executing on.
I would say both. As I said, I look at my inspiration, same as you guys, from all these other artists, and I just go, okay, I want whatever I'm doing in this space to look as good as the best anyone else is doing.
But in 2 weeks, when the explainervideo.com can do, Kazurtsagat, however you pronounce it, level or better.
Sure.
At the end of the day, they're not going to have Joe in marketing, come up with the story and just have him punch it in there. They're still interested in the ideas that you bring to it, and how you can sort of think outside of the box.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Your argument.
Right. Yeah. So that is my argument, and so far that's been, I believe, like the tale of my success. However you might say I'm successful or not, but for my personal sense of success, that's been the story of it, where I've just.
And it kind of backs up, like every month we do How to Fix Your Art, and we also review portfolios, and we look at portfolios on this website, or on this podcast. And the thing we always keep coming back to is, you guys, your illustration looks beautiful, but you don't have a story. Like your illustration really well done, but you don't have any sort of like aha, like punchline or question that makes me excited, right? Or makes me interested.
Right.
And so I guess at the end of the day, it really is like AI is not making, or AI or machine learning isn't making any image on their own. It's a human behind it telling it what to do. Right.
Well, right. And so, for instance, like in that video, and again, I don't rely on AI. It's it's something that's there. It's tools I can use or choose not to use. But to create that video, that 1 minute long video. So I generated something like probably 70 to 80 different images to get to ones that I wanted. Then out of those images, then I generated through motion brushes and whatever to create, a certain amount of short video segments to put into that video, and then cutting it all together, adding some effects and things like that. Even the song itself, I generated about 30 different songs. I wrote the lyrics, generated 30 different songs, played with different settings to get where I needed to go with it. So so it's never, I think people have this idea, and probably from Mid-Journey, this idea that, whatever's made using AI tools, it just took, it just took someone to press a button and AI made this. I find, and I do look at videos on YouTube where people are tutorializing about whatever different AI things. What I hate is the clickbaitiness of the thumbnails that say, AI made this entire music video in 4 minutes. No, it didn't. Like I know someone curated the images. Again, I'm not saying this is art. I'm saying someone curated. In
a way, it's more art direction is what it's
right. It takes someone to curate. You have to have a vision for it to push it in a direction you want it to go. It's just, we now have tools at our fingertips that really can get us there so much faster, or in ways we couldn't before. So there's another project on my portfolio site called Skyhawks, and it again was one of my little from months ago. It was one of my little just AI experiments. It's like 20 seconds long. It's a 20-second long promo for a kid's show that doesn't exist. And what it is, it's based on, in the 1960s, there used to be this, I think it was out of England, this show called Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
And actually, what's that?
They're all puppets.
Yeah, they're all puppets flying around in toy vehicles to solve world problems or battle monsters or rescue people from an earthquake, that sort of thing. And it was actually the inspiration for the Team America World Police movie by the South Park guys. Anyway, so I thought, okay, I want to try making something like that. Now, I could, that's it. So I could, and I have like this very stern kind of brusque voice from yesteryear, kind of doing the announcing over that video as well. Anyway, so now I could have made all these models I could have, put together these toys. I could have tried to make explosions. I could have, would have built that robot there. But basically, there was a curation that I put into the images and then into the videos, even adding little dust scratches and things like that into the video to just kind of create this, I just wanted to try that out. Can I do something like that? Let's experiment with this. It's a toy. Let's try it out. Well, it's a few toys. It was like about 3 or 4 different AI, online software that went into that. So that's something that I wouldn't have the time to do, to do all this sort of stop motion stuff and to, put all that together by hand. But I could do it in that way. It hasn't gotten me work. I wasn't trying to get it to get me work. But it was something I wanted to play with, and posted, obviously, as a proof of concept, as you say, of something. I could do something like this if that's what you're looking for, Mr. or Mrs. Client. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a credible tool for like proof of concept. Like, here's what's in my head. Let's get it down on something you can see ASAP.
Right.
I think we're gonna wrap it up there.
Okay.
If you're cool with that.
I'm very cool with that.
I appreciate your
yeah.
Spending some time with us, and I absolutely love what you say about combining passion with opportunity, and how if you're able to do that, like essentially the world's your oyster. Like there's plenty of stuff for an artist to do.
And I would say plenty for all artists to do, and again, it's just having that awareness of your marketplace and telling great stories, no matter what tools you use.
Yeah.
To express it. Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
so
guys.
much.
All right.
Cool. All right. That was Rich. Grateful that he took some time to visit with us today. I want to say one thing, and that is, we talk about these tools, how they're getting better and they're more accessible and more people are able to use it. And do you guys remember The Incredibles? Did you ever see that movie?
I don't know. Is that a movie? I haven't.
It's a Pixar movie.
Okay.
Yeah, you may have heard of it.
There's like a Stretch Armstrong character in there, right?
Yeah, there is. Right. It's the Fantastic Four and the Watchmen put together, but with the Pixar filter over the top of it. But there's one point in it where Syndrome, and he's the guy that uses technology to give himself superpowers. And his whole thing is, once everybody has superpowers, once everyone's super, no one's super. And I kind of feel like that's going on here with AI. Is once everybody can make art, then nobody is an artist, right? There's no artists anymore. It's just, everyone can speak, everyone can do all these like similar things. And now sort of art is this big leveling of the playing field. My comeback to that is, if everybody can do this thing using AI, then pretty soon it's going to be very boring and it's going to be yawning and people are going to be like, I've seen that before. It looks AI. I can tell it's AI. And what are they going to want? They're going to want something that wasn't AI. Yeah. So my thing here is, let this thing run its course, run its cycle. And in 5 years, when everybody's sick of AI and AI's made like the perfect meal for them, the perfect content meal for them, they're going to be like, I need to be surprised. I need I need something that the algorithm wasn't expecting me to like. And they're going to look to people who can do that outside of those tools, I believe.
That reminds me of when Pixar first came out, there was the Pixar look, right? Where everything was, and we still have that right now, right? The world looks Pixar. But in that time, I can't remember what movie it was that Pixar was on. But during that time, didn't Wallace and Gromit come out during then? and it was interesting because, you know, obviously Wallace and Gromit is stop motion. So you had a kind of like a, oh yeah, you can do all this with computer animation. Well, look what you can do with none of that. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not perfect. And it's what's so charming about it.
You can see the fingerprints in it.
You can see all kinds of stuff happening. And like, you know, some of the animation is seamless and some is a little clunky, but that's the charm. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think once people start to see AI imagery everywhere, it's going to be easier to stand out. Unless the, you know, the AI, they feed it a bunch of randomness that where it can somehow mimic.
Yeah, it realizes that you do
dirty,
need randomness.
Yeah, some dirty texture kind of. I don't know. Like, I tend to think that we'll be able to stay ahead as artists in some ways on that. You know, like doing something.
I guess my last bit of takeaway on that is after messing with this conversation for like a year is I'm getting bored of the conversation. I'm sure other people are too. I mean, I'm kind of going back to the idea of just make stuff and shut up about how you're making it. Who cares? It's just so boring to keep talking. Well, I mean, do you remember when, I mean, we've talked about it before, but you know, when people were talking about Photoshop and all that stuff and how that's no good. And then even the podcast today, we're talking about Squarespace and stuff taking over HTML designers. It's just boring to talk about. This is what happens. It moves forward. Make your thing. Shut up.
You know who's not talking about it are the people who are attending the conventions that you want to sell your stuff at. The people that are the audience is walking around are like, oh, that's a cool Punisher shirt. I want that. They don't care how it was made. They don't care if it was done with AI. They don't even think like that. I'm not saying
people that go to print. Yeah, you're right. People that go to press are the people who are always going to thrive, regardless of the tool they made it with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
If they have something interesting to say.
But
that's the thing, is it's going to be all about what your voice is and are you interesting, essentially. All right, guys, 3-point perspective. It's made possible by SVSLearn. We're becoming a great illustrator starts. Check out our upcoming courses. We've got Self-Publishing Pro in August. You're going to want to join us for that. So it'll be our second time running it, and it'll be a good experience based on, you know, what we've heard from our students of the first round. We also have a 2-week or a weekend comics workshop that I'm doing at the end of July. So if you want a sort of fire hose of information on comics making, and with the possibility, if you sign up for the critique level, of getting me to critique your comic and work on it and help workshop it with you, definitely going to want to sign up for that. Links for both of those courses are going to be in the show notes or in the comments below. Thank you for joining us. Your hosts are Will Terry, Lee White, and I'm Jake Parker. And we want to just do our thankful shout outs to everybody. I didn't have my thing up. Here it is. Podcast produced by Daniel Tu. That's Daniel TU. Special thanks to our keeper of the curriculum, Austin Shirtliff, our show notes wrangler, Lily Howell, our chief operations officer, Lisa Fott, our illustrator, Annalise Black. Now go draw something.